Coming up on the final stretch now, and I want to do a massive thank you to Justin from Jhart Modelworks. I haven't really been one to advertise this channel, just if you stumble across it, that's great, that's what it's here for. Every now and then I'll post like a teaser on Instagram saying, hey guys, final video's up, go check out the build. So for him to do that, it is truly humbling, and I am grateful. Thank you so much, Justin. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm just masking off the headlight buckets just to get them painted black. To make this a bit easier, get some cleaner cuts, I stropped this X-Acto blade. Got a nice mirror polish on that, and this thing is sharper than an X-Acto blade. I don't know how to describe it. It'll cut. Now we'll see how sharp this is, because this thing is literally shaving paint off to bare plastic. It is that sharp. And the headlight bucket, that's fine because we're going to paint it all black. So I'm not too concerned about this being careful here. I just want a nice, straight, clean tape line. Right there is where I shaved off the paint. And speaking of paint, I'm just going to use some Tamiya TS6 matte black. I'm just going to decant some of that into my airbrush here. I'll show you how I do that. I just use a paper towel over the nozzle to keep any of the splashback at minimum, and I just do small, very quick, like half-second bursts. We just let it sit for a few minutes, let all the bubbles rise to the top, and that's going to be ready to be shot through an air gun. And tapping it did not speed up the process. And I got total 3 different airbrushes I use. This one is broken. I'm not really sure what the problem is. I think the valve in it's broken, but it just shoots everything at about half the normal pressure, which is actually kind of worked out to my favor. This airbrush really shines in things like this. I use it a lot more than I thought I would. I was gonna throw it away, but no, I love it. And this right here is why I like it. I'm gonna shoot just a small little bit of paint on this, set down that airbrush, and this paint's already gonna be dry. It shoots such a small amount of paint at such a low pressure that it's basically dry the second it hits plastic. And sorry I got to demonstrate that with this finger, it's the only one that I knew was clean. And that's a good thing, because since it instantly dries, it is not going to be bleeding under any tape. Perfecto. And As I usually do, I just use the Molotov chrome pen to chrome out the headlight and the taillight buckets. Then I just glue them all in. Actually, this stuff isn't glue. I gotta stop using that word. I adhere all the clear glass parts with the UV resin. This stuff is plenty strong to hold any part in place, and the best part of all, it dries super clear and it doesn't fog up your clear parts. It has all the positive aspects of super glue with none of the negatives. And I'm the kind of guy where time is money and I like to do things quick. So I shot this in real time just to show you how quick it is. Yep, that's it. That was what, 15 seconds to install that? It's ready to be worked. Now, some of these cars, these little side markers, they're actually blinkers. Some of them were functional, some of them were just chromed out like this. I guess back in the day, the rules were these cars had to be roadworthy. You could pull them off the track and legally drive them on the street. That is why this car has a spare tire, and the GT40, its competitor, had a trunk. I'm serious. A carpet-lined trunk. Probably had luggage in it going down the track. As you can see how quickly and easily that wiped off. That's one of the reasons I like to use Sharpies. If you make a mistake, you could wipe it right off before it dries. That is why I primarily use these for all my builds for taillights and side markers. They're transparent enough to be convincing, they're easier to control, and just like the UV glue, they dry within just a few minutes, so I don't have to wait for paint to dry. I will preach this in every video I make. If you can, use a razor saw to cut all your clear parts off the screws. These are a lot more rigid than regular plastic parts, so they tend to be a lot more brittle. Whereas regular parts will just bend, these will just immediately snap. And I decided to kind of give you guys an example of that. See how that snapped all the way through, even though I just did a little snip at the top. Before I found the razor saw, I was cutting my clear parts off the sprue like this, and at least half the time I broke them. A handful of my previous builds all had to be displayed with the windows quote unquote rolled down because I had to cut them out because they were damaged, because I use sprue cutters like this to remove them from the sprues. To simulate the black rubber seal around this windshield, I just went around the edge with a black Sharpie. And I had to pinch in the sides just like that to hold this in place and glue it in. It took, I don't know, if I had 4 hands it would have been a lot easier, but I didn't record it because it took so many tries and it was such a pain. I didn't want you all to see me struggling. And I don't know if a lot of you noticed, but in almost every video I do, I just slow it down. I do a lot more detail just as a how-to, so to speak. In this video, I'm going to be doing that with the side windows. And I keep repositioning this because I want just enough overlap to be safe from bleed through, but I don't want it to be so thick and hard to cut through. And just like on the chassis, I like to use the dull end just to kind of locate that edge so I know where to go. Then I'll flip it over and I'll use the pointy end to really define it and get down there deep. And I found if you just dive right into it with the pointy end, you're going to poke a hole in your tape and you got to start all over. And once again, I'm using that same blade that I had stropped to the super sharp edge to clean this up. Normally I do this all in one cut, just one continuous pass, but I am working through the viewfinder, so I'm playing it safe. With this thing being as sharp as it is, it has absolutely no problem getting out of that line, just gouging anything that comes in its way. And I will cover the back of the window with the dollar store tape just to help with overspray or possibly bleed through, because I will be using a rattle can for this next bit. It's always a good sign on clear parts when you peel it off and don't see any bleed through or any problems. For all the windows, we're doing the exact same affairs we did with the headlights. Just a little dab of UV resin in each of the corners, then shine a light on it and it's locked in place forever. In fact, I think this gas cap was harder to install than those side windows were. And the back window, that was pretty easy too. Alright, full disclosure. Gluing those side skirts in may or may not have been a bad idea. It certainly didn't make installing the chassis any easier. It did, however, make painting and decals a lot easier, so I don't know, take your pick. As you just saw my hand motion there, what I ended up doing was just installing it all from the back wheel wells and just sliding it all forward. It actually turned out pretty well. It was just extremely hard to do and nerve-wracking because I was afraid they were going to pop off. I'm willing to bet if I had installed this piece beforehand, it would have been impossible. But I thought it was all aluminium and I didn't realize so much of it was actually body color, so I pulled it off at the last minute and repainted it. And while it does pop into place, it doesn't always hold it, so a little bit of glue and a whole lot of this accelerator saved the day. And I was going to explain something here, but come voiceover time I forgot what it was, so who knows what's going on here. I don't speak Japanese, so some mistakes were made here. Looking at the pictures on the instructions, one would think that these were just regular stickers, and I treated them like such. And after many times of not getting them to stick to the tire, I don't know why, but I figured I'd try some water on them, and that worked just fine. Now This transfer tape is kind of transparent, so take your time here, make sure it's lined up and positioned perfectly. Now, you may be noticing some parts in the background that have already been installed. I don't really follow the instructions. There's no rhyme or reason or method to the order in which I build. I just kind of sit down and just start building. This is where the mistakes were made. See how those say Goodyear? There were 2 rows of tire decals here, and I thought that there was enough to do 1 logo on each side of the tire. Nope, one says Goodyear, one says Firestone. So I'm just going to flip them all over, have the Goodyear facing the inside and the Firestone facing the outside. Some polycaps I've noticed, especially in Fujimi, they got just a very tiny taper to them. So just pay attention when you're installing them, because they will go in very easy one way and they'll fight you the other way. Oh, and these were painted with just some random Rattle King gold I've had forever. It's so worn out, I don't even know what brand of paint it is anymore. But a little bit of this stuff goes a long way, so I've had that can for several years. Now, when they give us a solid axle, I will seat it all the way on one side and just stab the assembly all the way through. I ran into another small issue here, that the tire is tucked up in the fender well a little bit, so this fought me too. I like to install the wheels and tires last, just so I can get my fingers up into the fender wells and have room to flex the body out, just to make fitting the chassis easier. Now, the final sanity check, I'll just set this off to the side, press down on all 4 corners, make sure it's set and level. This is what I hate about these metal axles. Even though both wheels are seated all the way, it's still too wide. Now, these are the tailpipes, and I didn't like how little the outlet was, so I just drilled them out a few holes bigger. A little bitty drop of panel line accent down in each one of those will make them look so much better. And I'll just do that to every one of the body panels, wipe off all the excess, and this car is done. And that is it, guys. This car is done. I just want to give another thank you to Justin, everyone that signed up here at the tail end of this. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned, because I love building models. I got a lot of models to build. Share this with more friends, get them involved, make this hobby big again.